to the powerful.
You're kind of tying into two things that you've triggered in my thought, and one, I'm always a big fan of being constructively critical. Okay, I think when you're looking at a system and you're looking at the status quo and you see points of contention, I think it's important to focus on individual players and certain constellations. But I think we as a system, we are part of the system. We contribute to it, and the question is, what can an individual or those who are victims of the system do? And it brings me back to the question: why do we pick the types of leaders that are often unethical, or sociopaths or psychopaths? I think if we're honest with ourselves, it's because a lot of these people have also good qualities. I have to be very careful what I'm saying here. I'm not trying to be apologetic for their negative behavior, but I think a lot of these, if you think of Elon Musk, if you think of Steve Jobs, and if you think of a number, Tim Cook, or any number of, or even Henry Ford, who a lot of these people were abhorrent people in their private lives, but very successful business people. Now, I'm not saying that they were good business people because they were racist, or because they were misogynistic, or because they had an inhumane view of the world. But they had other qualities which did endear them to the masses. And I think, one, they were charismatic. Okay. And I think charisma is not a good or bad thing in the sense, it's how you use it. And I find a lot. I think one of the big problems I have, and I think Charles Bukowski says this, the stupid people are loud and proud. I'm kind of re-quoting his quote. Stupid people are loud and proud and do whatever they want, unabashed, and they live life happy and often successful. And people who are highly intelligent are often overly self-reflective and self-critical and don't speak up. And I think what we all look for when we select, if we were out in the wild and we were to pick a leader, there are certain qualities of leadership that we're looking for that are missing in some of our more reflective and humble leaders, and are very prevalent in some of these sociopaths and psychopaths. And one of these qualities that I always have noticed is and it kind of ties in with what part of your model in your research is, the ability to make succinct, distinct, and quick decisions in an environment, and this is increasingly so, where volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity is going up. What the masses want is a semblance of stability and security and certainty. Okay? They don't want somebody who's wishy-washy and all over the place. They want somebody, and you were talking about trade-off factors, has the ability to look at the fact, and if we go back also to the concept of wicked problems, what is the solution? According to the literature I've read on wicked problems, you can't solve the whole thing, but what you do is you pick out a certain aspect. Instead of trying to solve the Goliath of the problem, what you do is you pick out aspects of it that are manageable, and you manage those. Consequential. And this means making distinct decisions, even if there's an interim pain period to get to the positive aspect. So thinking midterm, long term also means sometimes short term. There'll be pain points. So making decisions that are difficult to make, being able to be quick on knowing if I'm looking at A, B, C, which is the better solution, kind of using their gut instinct. And another thing which I kind of ties in with what you were saying beforehand, what I find lacking a lot of it is the ability to have vision. Vision for me means the ability in volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity to look into your mental crystal ball and say, nobody knows where it's going. Nobody knows what the future is, but I'm going to tell you where the future is. This is where we're going. And there's thousands of examples from the past. If you go back to Julius Caesar, or you go to Steve Jobs, who, when everybody was divesting, it is one of my favorite examples. When everybody was divesting from laptops, Apple said, no, laptop, people are still willing to pay $2,000 plus for a laptop. HP was saying, are you crazy? It's not profitable. You can't sell a laptop if it costs more than $600. So this is the ability to have vision. And I think the big problem the society has when they're looking at people who have vision is discerning who's nuts, who's literally sociopathically, psychopathically nuts, and doesn't have any concept of reality, and who is a genius and sees something that we don't see and gives us a path to the future that we are looking for. I think that's a challenge. I think one of the reasons why we have so many psychopaths and sociopaths as leaders is because they're outspoken, they're quick to make the decisions, they don't feel guilty when they do make a decision, and they have vision, even if the vision is off in la la land. Okay, and
maybe there's a fallacy here.
Okay,
because we like to admire people who boldly went when nobody went before.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think the fallacy is because we only see those for successful people who maybe have had outlier visions and plans, and we do not see the thousands or maybe tens of thousands who had the same and who failed, right? Yeah. And it is also, in the end, it is also a question of luck and statistics of what fails and what succeeds. So clearly the traits that we recognize in those successful leaders some of them seem to be prerequisites that are necessary, and a certain willingness to follow through, maybe even a certain ruthlessness, one that might,
or resilience.
Yeah,
the ability to get back up, because quite honestly, we all make mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, Steve Jobs, when he went to Next, I mean, he was pretty much down and out, at that point, and look how roaringly he came back. Yeah? So
are you saying that one of the qualities that maybe our listeners who want to be leaders is charisma, vision? But what you're saying, and I think your point is spot on, is to say, listen, acknowledge the fact that as a leader you're going to make mistakes, but have the strength of character and the resilience to come back fighting.
I think what is important is, and that is also goes into politics, if you have a vision, you should be able to explain this vision and
you have to be a storyteller
and to convince people of it. And I've found out that those politicians and also those business leaders who are particularly convincing and who are successful, they are not necessarily only those that are liked by others. So many people who want to be successful, they want to make themselves liked and admired and so on. But I think it's quite the opposite. The successful ones are the ones that make you believe that they like you.
Yeah.
And if you listen to Trump, he always says, "I love you" all the time, right? Does he mean it? Nobody can really assume he does. Yeah. And yet, because people like to hear that, they will follow him. So that explains a lot of the charisma in many cases. People want attention and they want affection, and that normally works.
They want consequential behavior. They don't really care about the consequential behavior. That's really the problem. And it is, I think, where we have to, so how this is triggered and how these decisions or these elections are made seems to be rather clear. But what is important is what happens afterwards. And I think one antidote to psychotic behavior and rampant egotistical taking advantage is a set of rules, basically. And the rules can only make any sense when there's a certain degree of transparency. But the transparency is a regulatory thing on the one hand, and on the other hand, of course, it's a cultural question in the companies. And what would be nice is to have a yardstick where you can say, well, this is a company that has enough transparency so we can actually watch how ethical their decisions are and how they are moving along on this dimension, and others that are just basically opaque, right? I mean, it's already to a certain extent that is already the case, because we have certain ideas about some companies to be more transparent and more likable and more responsible than others, but in the end, it comes down to culture. I mean, things for which in Germany a politician will resign, in Austria nobody will even think about it, right? And the famous quote of killing somebody on Fifth Avenue, that doesn't matter. Shooting them in the face, yeah.
It has come to pass. On January 6th, 5 people died, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right?
Let me kind of shift gears, because I'm having a great time with this conversation, but I think we also want to kind of look for our viewers and listeners to kind of give them a guideline. I think I hope we've kept you interested with our philosophical and also kind of practical topics here. But let's shift gears and maybe kind of put it into context. So if because we can talk about society, but society is always abstract in the sense that it's external. We're part of it, but it's kind of externalized, and we can point the finger. And I always say when you point the finger, there's always three fingers pointing back. I think from a constructive kind of PM Cowboy mentality, if we can't fix the world, if the wicked problem is too big for us to solve, let's start off with the problems that we can solve. So I'm assuming there's a number of leaders out there listening to us. I'm assuming there's a lot of people out there who want to be leaders and or maybe disenfranchised or cynical about their prospect. What can we tell these people if they're focusing on themselves? Okay, so the first message is ethical leadership makes sense. There's a value proposition, and maybe the value proposition is more midterm or long term.
Not necessarily.
You also see a short-term benefit?
Absolutely. I see there is I think if there's one thing that you can improve today to make yourself more ethical and to also move the entire society towards a more ethical direction, is just take more time, take more care, take more attention to your decisions. It is that simple. And that is actually something that you should educate yourself about. Because there are many strategies that you can employ to make better decisions. For example, I could just give an example. There's a whole literature about it. But one that I like particularly well is, and that actually turned up in our conversation already several times, is that when you have certain options, very often the fallacy is that you have only two ways to go, and then so you take the better one, without really exploring if there's an even better
third alternative.
Yeah, or even the fifth, or even the seventh, right? So a very, very good strategy is always to generate more options, right? If you look at the getting to yes, the Harvard method, it's always always create options, right? So that is something that I think any good leader, any ethical leader, and I say any good leader, because it's really about the quality of the decisions. The quality of the decisions will go up if you employ those techniques, of which generating more options is one. And when you make better decisions, these decisions will by default be also more ethical.
Can I jump in? Because I love, and I want to continue with the decision making, because that's a kind of a pragmatic checklist that we want to give our listeners. How, if I want to become a more ethical leader in a pragmatic sort of sense, so being able to make better decisions is a hallmark of ethical. Sure. But I want to, because you.
And by the way, it's what's very important from the leadership perspective. You have to make sure that this culture of decision making is really permeated through the entire organization.
Now you're going in the direction that I thought you insinuated, but I didn't want to miss. And I think that the precursor to this, I think the preliminary part where you can live ethics, so to not make it abstract, to make it a day-to-day practice is, and I want to kind of go back to